Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of the NFL Draft Triple Take, brought to you by UPMC. I'm Mike Prisuta, joined as always by Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson. Today we are taking our second look at the offensive tackle position as we continue getting you ready for the NFL Draft, April 27th to the 29th in Kansas City. Dale, let's start with you as we take a further review of the offensive tackles. Is it still three guys pretty much separating from the rest, or is the gap closing perhaps between the top three and everybody else?
Well, Mike, I don't have three at the top because I don't consider Pete Skoronski. I don't think he's going to play tackle in the NFL because of the short arms and you know those situation with that. So I list him as among my guards.
So then is the gap between the top two and everybody else?
Well, let's put these guys up here in the correct order, and then we'll let you guys mess it up.
Okay. Well,
so what I've got here is...
Now this is your alteration from the first go-around.
This is my alteration here. So I've got Paris Johnson from Ohio State, number 1. Again, with Skoronski not in the mix there. I've got at number 2, Broderick Jones out of Georgia. I think it's very close between those two guys. And then you get a little bit of a different opinion here. But I got Darnell Wright from Tennessee, number 3. The difference here is he's just a right tackle, basically. Played some left tackle, but not as well as he did on the right side. Made some changes here from the first time around. I'm sliding Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse up into that 4 spot. And then I've got DeJuan Jones staying in there, but or coming into that. I had Bergeron as number 5 the first time around. Anton Harrison from Oklahoma drops out of my top 5. Nothing that he did, but you can't ignore DeJuan Jones. It's impossible.
If you wanted to, you couldn't. Yeah.
He stands out in the crowd.
He blocks out the sun.
Yeah.
My list is similar. It's actually very similar to my initial 5. In fact, it is unchanged with what I came up with initially at the position. Although, Dale, I'm going to correct you here, or disagree anyway. I've got Broderick Jones ahead of Paris Johnson. I'm going to go with Skoronski as a tackle for the time being. He was my number 3. And then Darnell Wright is my 4. Take the Syracuse guy over there, much like the NCAA tournament, not included. And DeJuan Jones is my 5. A couple things I noticed on my review of these guys. I'm at the point now where I've started rewatching games after all the All-Star games and the Combine and the Pro Days. And Broderick Jones, there was a play early in Georgia's victory over TCU for the national championship when it was still a contest. It looked like there was either a delayed flanker screen or it was a second option on a play, but Jones sprints out to the wing and doesn't go upfield too soon on what was a very slow developing play. They ended up throwing the ball that way, but he kept himself where he needed to be. He didn't get the lineman downfield penalty. Tells me, A, it's another example how well the guy moves, which you notice right away, but B, he's either really well coached or really smart or both. And either one of those things are a good thing. And then Paris Johnson in the Ohio State semifinal against Georgia. First series, Stroud gets sacked. And Jalen Carter and Johnson end up in the vicinity of the play, neither one of them critical to what happened. But Carter, as he's walking by Johnson, gives him a little shove, kind of, hey, how you doing? I'm going to be here all day. And Johnson responds with a shove back that sent the big guy down to the turf. No penalties or anything. It wasn't that big a deal, but it just told, hey, Paris Johnson comes to play, and he's not having any of that. If you want to fool around and send messages, he's not going to receive them. In fact, he's going to deliver them. Really like both of these guys. Jones amazes me how well he moves.
Oh, he runs like the wind. It's impressive.
It's really impressive. Skoronski, tackle guard, will have tackle for our purposes here. And then the other two guys, Dale, I thought you hit it on the head. Right tackle and guy who blocks out the sun. Guy who was called by Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network, an avalanche in the running game.
Yeah, I saw him at the Senior Bowl.
If you're a defender, go try to block an avalanche as it comes at you.
When I was at the Senior Bowl, Mike, I walked down on the field. He didn't practice the second day down there. But they had the media down on the field after practice, and I walked over. I wasn't going to talk to him, but I just wanted to see exactly how big he is. And so I walked over and stood next to him, and I'm like, okay, That's pretty big.
Rare.
Yeah, that's rare size.
6'8" and a quarter, 374 was the official listing.
Obscenely long arms.
Close enough, right?
Yeah.
Matt, what do you have for us?
I also have Skoronski with the interior O-lineman, but that being said, I think he's the best blocker in this entire class, and depending where he lands, he may start his career at left tackle and might do it very, very well. So I'm just not sure what to do with him, to be honest. And Jones and Johnson are almost interchangeable to me, but I went in this direction. Johnson's only played left tackle for 1 year. Talked about the arm length of Jones, but his teammate also has crazy long arms, prototypical traits. You mentioned how well Jones moves. It's very, very impressive. And both these guys had great combines, looking at their drill work in particular. But what stood out with Jones is his feet are always so wide. He has such a great base, whether he's moving laterally, running, sitting in his stance. So I thought that was extremely impressive too. Both these guys have high upsides. I have Wright at 3.
Now, he's made a lot of moves
I think he's been really,
throughout
really
the
impressive.
process, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, going back to the Senior Bowl and then
He seems like everything he's doing, he's checking another box, in a positive manner. And I do think both these guys are right tackles, and that's where they've excelled. But I'm not so sure that if you brought him to camp and said, learn the left side, that it's impossible. 2 years ago, Wright did play left tackle. Didn't go nearly as well as this past year at right tackle. If anyone's really interested in Wright, watch him versus Will Anderson. Nobody did a better job against Will Anderson this year than Darnell Wright. And you're right, his stock seems to be soaring with every step he takes.
now, before you finish it off, let me ask you. It used to be left tackle, right tackle.
Yeah, T.J. Watt comes against the right tackles
it's-
now, and the both
Passing
Miller.
games are
Right.
sophisticated enough now that there's really no
Right.
difference to speak of, correct?
That's correct.
In terms of the value in protecting.
I think so. There is some stigmas. The lighter guys on their feet are on the left side. The people that look like DeJuan Jones are on the right side.
Well, wait a second. Nobody looks like the one.
Well, the one that I'm thinking of is Orlando Brown.
The two people with the one guy on the shoulders of the other guy.
And Orlando Brown's on making
Orlando
a
Brown
fortune
plays
playing
both sides,
left
yeah.
because he wasn't comfortable on the right. All that being said, Harrison is more of your prototypical left tackle. A little bit lighter on his feet, better in protection, not the mauler that these guys are in the run game, but could have a really, really good career as well. And Bergeron was my just miss. He was 6.
Yeah, some of these guys that didn't make my list, Harrison was one of them. He was called polarizing by Jeremiah because, as Jeremiah put it, he might some think first round, some think third round.
Okay.
If there's that kind of indecision, do you trust your gut or do you think, oh, maybe I should go for more of a sure thing?
My hunch is it depends on how much you throw the ball versus how much you run the ball. I mean, I bet it's more of a scheme thing because if you're trying just to bludgeon your opponent,
He's
you want
not gonna
these
be for
guys
you,
or
yeah.
you want Bergeron. But if you're going to throw 50 times a game, I want Harrison as my left tackle.
Yeah, I had Bergeron also very high on my didn't quite crack the top 5 list. He's got an interesting backstory as well. He's really come a long way in a short period of time from Canada. Some other guys that got my attention a little bit. Jalen Duncan of Maryland, big guy, started a lot of games for the Terps. Tyler Steen, Alabama via Vanderbilt. He's got a really interesting backstory as they were reporting on him throughout the Combine and the All-Star games. His father's a Marine, and Steen's grandfather was a Vietnam vet and a Medal of Honor winner.
Yeah, his grandfather dove on a grenade to save other people.
One of the offensive line lessons I learned when I was in the league is tough and smart is really hard to get off the field.
Yep.
And Steen epitomizes that for Alabama.
Blake Freeland of BYU is another guy who did pretty well in the testing. And
he's got some rare traits.
Super athletic.
Yeah.
some of the off-season stuff.
Right.
Joey Fisher, Shepherd, put up 40 reps at 225 at somebody's pro day. I don't think Shepherd had one, did they?
That I
They
don't
might
know.
have because they got a quarterback in this draft too.
Yeah,
maybe,
maybe.
but I
People
mean,
there, yeah.
4'9", 40 at 6'5", 322 pounds.
I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board on him.
I mean, I'm not really
Yeah,
that interested. If I see those kind of physical numbers,
Right.
I'm not that interested in who you were playing.
No, right.
Because
Just bring
I
him
think
to camp and coach
I think
him
I can
up,
work
right.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And John Ojukwu of Boise State, 51 career starts. Things have changed with COVID and guys getting extra years
experience
and
it,
guys staying in because of NIL. Experience matters, doesn't it?
No doubt about it, especially that position. I mean, people look at the athletic traits, the length. offensive line is a very technique-based, position to play, and that experience translates.
And to your point, for example, about Freeland, a lot of these guys are ridiculously athletic.
Ridiculous is the right word.
Freeland set a combine record for the vertical jump at 37 inches.
And he's like 6'8".
He still holds the Utah state record in the javelin. The guy's 6'8" and 300+ pounds.
Should get him together with that Princeton wide receiver. He could be a heptathlete.
I mean, these guys, and you look at like an Anton Harrison, basically a 5-second flat 40. I mean, these guys are super athletic this year.
Oh yeah.
Dale, anybody else on your near miss list or guys you would?
Another guy to keep an eye on, Mike, is Carter Warren from Pitt. He's a guy that I think is going to, again, a lot of career starts. A guy who's smart. He's going to fit into the equation here somewhere as well.
Matt, anybody else?
Nobody comes to mind. I think you nailed them, to be honest with you. It's a pretty decent group overall. I will say that these guys are strong prospects, but they're not quite Orlando Pace, Tony Baselli coming out. But not a ton of experience at the top. But it's a good group of tackles overall.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think these guys are obviously intriguing for all the reasons we just mentioned. But if you're a team in need, you might get one in the second, third, fourth round.
I agree. Or end of the first, there could be a run. I mean, I think top 50 is a sweet spot for tackles.
Again, that developmental guy that has the traits, maybe you need to season a little bit before he's ready to go in there and play a lot.
I'm just going to beat the dead horse one more time because it's one of the things I like to do. Broderick Jones is 6'5" and 3/8", 311 pounds. When you look at him, there's no way you'd guess he weighs that much.
Even in their program, he was 6'4". I was like, when he came to the combine, I was like, I wonder if he'll hit that 6'4" mark. He was well over.
Oh, you thought they were cheating up?
Right, it's always
down.
the other way around, right?
Yeah.
And very little fat on his body. I mean, he's a specimen.
That's going to do it for our second look at the offensive tackles, but I want to remind everybody that we are going to keep chugging along, taking our second looks at each position group. We'll have another mock draft in store for you down the road as we continue getting you ready for the NFL Draft, April the 27th through the 29th in Kansas City. Thanks for finding us on this edition. However, and wherever you found us, keep hitting those Steelers social media platforms, and we'll keep responding with all the draft information we can think of. Until next time, for Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, I'm Mike Prisuta. This has been the NFL Draft Triple Take, brought to you by UPMC.